There is an energy to modern Vietnam. Even an IT fair calls for cheerleaders and dance troupes. And it's this energy proving attractive to foreign firms like Intel, which has invested $1 billion here, building this high-tech processing plant just outside Ho Chi Minh City. But even for firms prepared to plough huge sums into the country, there is a feeling of caution.
What I find in the government is a willingness. They want to grow their industry. They want to go change their economy. They're very conservative, and they're conservative because they just don't know. And they don't have the resources of some of the other countries around here that they can make mistakes. And so they're very methodical. They ask lots of questions, which I think is prudent. Again, trying not to make a mistake that will go send them in the wrong direction.
You've got the lower level officials who should be making decisions, but they need to get the approval of those further up the chain. And sometimes it goes right up to the Prime Minister's desk. So there's this lack of devolved decision making in Vietnam.
Truth be told, the problem is actually less so compared to some of the other emerging market economies, right? I mean, if you consider how long it takes to open up a private company in a country like Vietnam compared with India, Vietnam compares favorably, right? Where you have lack of transparency is policy settings.
For 25 years since economic reforms began, Vietnam has been moving in the right direction, transforming itself almost beyond recognition. From the brink of starvation and ravaged by war, it is now a vibrant, rapidly growing and modernising economy.
Vietnam is the rising dragon of the East if you consider the growth numbers, but it is a dragon on steroids.
So there's real pride in the way the country has developed, but there's a long way to go yet before it really is seen as one of the leaders in the Southeast Asia region.
GDP is growing at nearly 7%, a figure many Western economies can only dream of. Yet there is an increasing fear this growth is unsustainable.
If Vietnam doesn't slow down right now, it needs to slow down credit, it needs to raise interest rates, it needs to rein in the external deficit. If it doesn't do that, I'm afraid that we are headed towards bubble territory.
Inflation is already rampant, hitting 11.8% in December 2010 on a year-on-year basis. The dong has been devalued 3 times since last year, and there is a current account deficit of $2 billion.
This year, our growth rate is 6.7%, but actually inflation 11%. If growth rate 6.7%, inflation need to be the same or lower. It means the real economy is still growing. Yeah, and that's why Vietnam needs much to improve.
Meaning this stellar growth may all count for nothing to the man on the street, presenting a real issue in a country already suffering from serious inequality.
I think the government needs to keep a very keen eye on social unrest, especially in an economy which is overheating. Because unlike the developed world, in the developing world, food prices comprise a very large part of overall consumer basket. And if food prices in particular and consumer prices in general are rising, it's a big tax on the have-nots.
While in the cities, young, upwardly mobile youngsters snap up mobile phones and the latest fashions, in rural Vietnam, which accounts for 75% of the population, a quarter of people live on less than $1.25 a day. It's a deepening divide, posing, some say, the nation's greatest threat.
If you begin to get ostentatious displays of wealth, which I think you're beginning to get now, I think there's going to be quite a social strain. I think that is probably the greatest danger that the government faces.
If growth slows in terms of if economic growth slows and you start seeing unemployment rise, this could create social problems, anti-government sentiment, and this is something that the government is very fearful of.
There's still big gaps, and in the future, I think that we need to have a new model that combines high growth and equity.
A new model that requires inward investment, especially in infrastructure, to link the booming cities to rural areas. It's estimated about $120 billion is required for railways, roads, electricity and water supplies. Yet despite steps to open up the economy, the government remains extremely conservative. Too often bureaucratic red tape and an economy dominated by large state-owned groups put off would-be investors.
If foreign investors are hoping for a Vietnam in 5 years that has an independent central bank, a floating exchange rate, and open capital account, then they're going to be disappointed.
Things have really changed in the last 10, 20 years, but there's still a sense of the Communist Party having this controlling mentality where it's really reluctant to go the whole way.
I think it will remain screened. I think that the Vietnamese government is not about to just open things up. And it's not about to let foreign investors enter into a bidding match over Vietnamese resources. Now, having said that, if you're a foreign investor, you can make a lot of money in Vietnam.
The country is freeing up, but with the communist legacy looming large, changes will be small and will not happen overnight.
I think this is going to be a slow process. I don't think they will. I think they will begin by letting go of key things like interest rates and credit rationing, but over a period of time. Again, this is not something that's going to change in the next 2 years.
That said, if you listen to the country's successful businessmen, the future for Vietnam is the focus and looks to be a bright one.
The thinking of the Vietnamese people are very positive, and that's important. Everybody thinks that tomorrow is better, and we can do something tomorrow. So, and we don't have time to think of the past. So that's the key element for the fast development of the economy.